Good morning, everyone. My name is John Michael Rosenbaum, and I'll be presenting the risk analysis for our first and second alternative. In our first alternative, we analyzed for running parallel paths while only having one scaffolding. This was activities A through H, which requires the use of scaffolding, and running I through Q in parallel. During this, we assumed that each team was independent and there would be no scheduling conflicts. To complete each work front, it would take 29 days. And then although this approach we determined would not complete the project on time, it would still have a projected cost of $25.9 million. And based on the fact that it not being completed on time, we'd incur the penalties for not completing it on time, leaving us a profit of $1.3 million. Next slide, please. In our risk analysis, you can see that it looks exactly like the base WBS. The reasoning for this is because of the project not being completed on time.
Is it okay to use any glass?
Okay. All right. I'm going to try going someplace else. I'm almost done. I just need to complete this one thing. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is John Michael Rosenbaum, and I'll be presenting the risk analysis for our first and second alternative. In our first alternative, we analyzed for running parallel paths while only having one single scaffolding. Activities A through H require scaffolding, whereas activities I through Q do not. So we assumed that you could run them in parallel. We also assumed that the teams would be independent of each other and would not have any scheduling conflicts. Each workfront takes 29 days, and by using this method, we determined that the final end date would be 17th August 2013. This unfortunately exceeds our 17th July deadline. We projected that the cost of doing this method would be $25.9 million. With the incurred penalties for not completing the task on time, we would result in a loss of $2.8 million, resulting in total profits of $1.3 million. Next slide, please. As you can see, our base WBS and our parallel path WBS are similar. In fact, they're the same. The reasoning for that is because of our project not being completed in time and the decreased profits due to not completing on time, being at 100% probability. Next slide, please. In our risk matrix, you can also see that R1 and R3 being project not completed on time and decreased profits due to not completing the project on time are in the red. These are our driving factors why we do not recommend this path. Next slide, please. In our second alternative, we analyzed for having 2 scaffoldings and running parallel projects in that one. Still, each work phase would take 29 days to complete, but in this analysis, we determined that the end date would be 27th of April, giving us an extra 84 days to account for any risk we encounter. The total cost of this project is $27.5 million, but because we would not incur any additional penalties based on producing the product on time, we would see a $2.5 million profit. Next slide, please. In our risk analysis, you can see that project not completed on time, decreased profits due to not completing the project on time, and resource shortfalls probabilities have gone down. You can see that projects not completed on time and decreased profits are at 25% probability, greatly decreasing the risk. And even though they still have a significant impact if they were to occur, they present a much lower risk. Also of note is that we still include equipment failure and safety mishaps in this analysis at 25% probability, but we would perform periodic maintenance and inspections on the equipment, replacing equipment before failure. We'd also train the personnel in safety and equipment use and provide safety inspections to lower those probabilities. But we also take that into account into the project delays, which is why we built in the lag time. Next slide, please. Now, as you can see in our risk matrix, we do have one risk analysis that results being in the red. This is decreased profits due to increasing resources at 100% probability. This is due to buying 2 scaffoldings. We have determined that this is an acceptable risk based on the increased profits of $2.5 million. And that would conclude my portion. Next slide, please. Here's our risk matrix for our second alternative. As you can see, R4, decreased profits due to increasing resources, is at 100% probability. This is due to buying the second scaffolding, which we have determined is an acceptable risk based on the $2.5 million profit. The next thing of concern is R2, project delays due to equipment and safety issues. Again, we have planned 84 days of lag time into the schedule to account for this, and we're assuming that the equipment failures and safety mishaps would stop. Next slide, please. Here we have our risk matrix for our second alternative. As you can see, R4, decreased profits due to increasing resources, is at 100% probability. This is based on buying the second set of scaffolding. But this is an acceptable risk based on the increased profits Next slide, please. Here we have our risk matrix for our second alternative. As you can see, R4 is at 100% probability. This is decreased profits due to increasing resources, which is based on buying a second set of scaffolding and running items in parallel. We have determined this to be an acceptable risk based on the 2.5 million profits. Another area of concern is R2, project delays due to equipment and safety issues. Every time we have an equipment failure or a safety issue, we've determined that it has the potential to delay the project. But by instituting the mitigators that we have recommended, we believe that we can lower the probability of that risk and have determined it to be acceptable. Thank you.